Hello, everybody, and welcome to Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodities space. My name is Jesse Day. Before we dive in, standard disclaimer, nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence. And today's guest is the CEO of Plato Gold Corp, a Canadian company focused on exploring precious and strategic metals properties in recognized mining districts around the world. It's Anthony Cohen. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks very much, Jesse. Nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you here. Why don't we start by discussing gold's performance? Obviously, this has been a hot topic recently with it reaching all-time highs, pulling back a little bit from here, but showing very strong price action recently. What do you think are the main catalysts? Because, I speak to a lot of different people that have different opinions. Some say global conflict is driving it. Some say it's central bank buying. What do you see as the main catalyst that brought us here? And how high could we go on the gold price in your view?
Okay, well, my first comment would be it's about time. Uh, you know, I think the extremely large increase in the money supply around the major economies of the world during the COVID period is a very important factor because gold is money. There's no counterparties. And when you have this tremendous increase in money, which in Canada, the United States, Britain, a number of other countries, Germany, where you had money basically created out of thin air to pay people to sit at home during COVID. If you have no corresponding increase in the supply of goods and services, that by definition is inflationary. So most people, a few years ago could see this coming down the road because if you create vast amounts of money with no corresponding increase in economic output, that's highly inflationary. And, as you know, gold production inches up every year, but it's a very limited supply because it's rare. So you know that gold is going to increase, just based on the increase in the money supply. And if you look back in 1980, when it hit the previous peak of well over $800 an ounce, fast forward to today, I don't think it's overvalued at all when you take inflation into account, as well as the increased production costs. So, in terms of where it's going, I think in fits and starts, it's going to continue to go higher. And again, taking inflation into account and looking at the previous high in 1980 of over $800 an ounce, I think that the forecasts of 3,500, $5,000 an ounce aren't at all, unreasonable or out of line. So I do think it's going higher. As we saw, it got knocked down, I think, to 2,100 or something, but it seems to be going back towards that $2,400 level. And if it goes through that, it can go quite a bit higher. So I think we're seeing, a solid bull market in it.
So when it comes to the gold mining space, obviously it has woken up to some extent. We've seen the majors, companies like Barrick, Newmont, Agnico Eagle, their share price pick up quite a bit along with the gold price. I've spoken to a lot of people who still think even the major producers are undervalued at this point, but especially the developers and explorers. So I'm wondering what your current thoughts are on the health of the gold mining sector. Are we still undervalued at this point?
In terms of many other sectors, it's very, I think, undervalued. It's a small sector, when you compare it to the technology sector, for example. And the recent announcement of BHP making a bid for Anglo American, shows that the companies themselves think that some of them that would be the majors, are undervalued. So, and as far as the juniors and the explorers, There's very little credit given to these companies if you look at their values, versus their land positions and their resources that they've developed. So, simple answer, yes, I think the sector is undervalued. And, if you have a continuation of an upswing in prices for gold, copper, silver, nickel, other commodities, you're going to see, I think, some increase in share prices.
And are we going to see more M&A activity in the space, do you think? Because a few other people I've spoken to have said that they think that could be a big catalyst for the sector moving forward. What are your thoughts there on the potential for M&A, and particularly as the gold price rises higher, some of these junior mining companies being taken out by majors?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing a bit of that happening. We're seeing some larger companies making investments and taking a piece of exploration companies with promising projects. So I think we're going to see a lot of that because over the last decade, the majors really have not put a lot of money into exploration and into greenfields exploration. The juniors, when they've been able to scrape together some dollars, have been the ones that have been making the discoveries and that have been out there exploring. So I think we will see a lot of that. Absolutely. Larger companies buying out smaller companies or making strategic investments in them.
Let's shift over from gold to the platinum group metals, because this is another sector some people are pointing to as being very undervalued at the moment. How do you currently see the setup for both platinum and palladium?
With Palladium, you've seen about a 2/3 price decline from a couple of years ago, at the high to where it is today. I think just under $1,000 an ounce or, either side of that. Platinum's held up a little better, but, it's probably off about 20% or so off the highs as well. So, obviously both metals are not in a bull market. They've come off quite a bit from the highs. A lot of that, I think, is market sentiment because, the market was very bullish on EV vehicles and thinking that, well, we're not going to need those metals as much in the future for, ICE powered cars. However, as you've probably seen in the news, Hertz fired their CEO who had made a big bet on EVs for rental cars, and no one wanted to rent them, and so the secondary market value of those cars plummeted. So Hertz had to take a huge write-off, and we're reading about EVs sitting in dealers' lots and no one buying them. So I think I think like with everything, there's a bit of a market overreaction, and we have to see, despite government mandates, if you don't have the infrastructure to power the vehicles, there's going to be a slowdown in the demand and slowdown in the sales of the vehicles. As an example, California has mandates. Whether it's 2030 or 2035, yet, they're suffering brownouts and blackouts there because they don't have enough electricity for the homeowners, never mind, the people's vehicles. So, I don't know. I have no crystal ball. I don't know how long this slowdown will last, or, if it's permanent or what. But I would think that probably, we're closer to the low in those metals.
Yeah, it's amazing how policymakers who are implementing and pushing these policies have absolutely no understanding of how energy even works. That really blows my mind. You'd think they'd have somebody advising them on these matters.
I think they tend to surround themselves with like-minded people, and just by the definition, political parties, they have people with similar viewpoints, and if there is someone in the room who makes a counterpoint, usually they're not very popular. So, I think there tends to be a lot of groupthink. And the cars themselves, work not bad. However, again, if you're in the north where there's, very extreme cold, the batteries lose a lot of charge. So, there's practicalities. If you're living in a close to downtown neighborhood and you drive downtown, they're fine. You can charge your car overnight. You're not driving far, and the technology works pretty well. But if you're talking about everybody driving them, you need one heck of a lot more infrastructure than what we've got. And if you're going on a road trip, I recently went on a long road trip to southern Colorado to pick up my son from college. And I rented a cargo van and made the drive. And I can tell you, if it was an electric vehicle, I would have been out of luck because I was traveling in vast areas of never mind electric charging stations. There weren't even gas stations, So, I mean, if you ran out of power there, you would be in a lot of trouble. So, there's all these practicalities that pop up, in real life versus some policymaker's office desk where they're sitting behind thinking this is the way we should go.
Yes, absolutely. I want to talk about niobium. This is a commodity that is not discussed. You mentioned before we started recording that even in the mining sector, people's eyes tend to glaze over when you talk about niobium. You sent a very interesting article over talking about its importance. I would like you to maybe highlight some of the main features there, and walk us through the investment thesis for niobium.
Okay, well, that when I mentioned that about even in the mining industry, that was about 6 years ago or so. Niobium's become a lot better known over that time period compared to today. But when I first got involved with the project, Rudy Wall, who's a very well-known prospector in northwestern Ontario, made the discovery around 2010, 2011. And after that time, we entered another very rough time in the mining industry, where it was very difficult to raise funding for exploration. And around 2017, the gold market seemed to, be showing some green shoots of interest. So Rudy had sent me some gold properties and I looked at them, but then I looked at his website and saw that he had a niobium property. And like most people, I said, what is niobium? So once I started doing some research on the metal, I became very excited about it because it's only mined three mines on Earth, two in Brazil, one in Quebec. And the one major mine in Brazil produces about 85% of the world's niobium. So it's very concentrated. Brazil as a country produces about 92, 93%. So there's very much concentration in one country. So that interested me, but what really interested me was the usages and the strategic usages. I sent you that article, which highlighted some of the military uses. So it is a critical metal on the list of the U.S. military, Canadian, EU, you name it. It's used in everything from artificial intelligence to in the chips, quantum computing, EV batteries, medical devices, oil and gas pipelines, fighter aircraft, jet engines. It's got so many strategic uses. It's so valuable. And I will bet if you talk to 10 politicians, 9.5 would have never heard of it. So it's frustrating in a way because it's something that's so important, so critical to infrastructure, military, etc. Quantum computing, which is the future of computing, and yet a lot of people who are in positions of authority or the ability to do something don't know anything about it. And niobium's typically hosted in carbonatite rocks, and there aren't too many massive deposits of carbonatite around. That's why it's only mined in 3 places in the world. Also, in some of the places where carbonatite occurs, for political reasons, security, etc., you wouldn't want to be going into those places. So, that's why, again, there's only 3 mines in the world. And Rudy made a very important discovery in northwestern Ontario, and it's close to infrastructure, Trans-Canada Highway, CP Railway, hydro, the town of Marathon. It's only about 25 minutes down the Trans-Canada Highway from Marathon. So it's got a fantastic location, which is important in mining, because if you have a great deposit, but you're in the middle of nowhere, it can take hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars to build the infrastructure to service that. So we got that all there already. And so when I saw that, I optioned the property from Rudy, and that was in 2017. In 2018, we did the first work on the property, first serious work. We did an over 5,000 meter drill program, 9 holes. We hit massive carbonatite every hole, niobium values in every hole, phosphate values in every hole. And phosphate could be potentially a nice byproduct, or if there's more phosphate than niobium, could be a nice byproduct. But we've got two elements there that could add a lot of value to the property. That said, it's been a tough time to raise money. So we raised a little bit a couple of years after we did the drilling, and we assayed more of the core. And, we came out with some pretty decent values of both niobium and phosphates. So that's where we stand right now. We know we have a massive carbonatite deposit, but we need to do the work to determine that we've got an economic resource here, and that takes money, that takes drilling, that takes assaying. It takes a lot of work that's expensive.
And phosphate, another commodity that's extraordinarily vital and has very intriguing supply-demand fundamentals at the moment, actually. So that's interesting to hear as well. Let's get more of a flavor of the overall kind of package when it comes to Plato Gold Corp. You just discussed the niobium project, Good Hope. Could you give us just a general overview of the company, and then we'll dive into the gold project, the Timmins Gold project, and your PGM project as well?
Well, the Timmins Gold project actually was the start of the company. And I optioned those properties from a well-known prospector, the late Buzz Neal, who put together this property package. And he had a lot of foresight, because he was near what became a number of mines in those 4 properties, including a complex that Agnico Eagle currently owns. So he was right on in terms of the location. When we first became a public company, we did some drilling on the gold properties, and we hit some I'll call it sniffs. There's always been gold discovered on the properties, but the characteristics of that east of Timmins gold camp is that you have to drill a lot. You really have to drill a lot in order to develop a resource. And after a few years there, I decided that, we don't want to just keep on raising money, drilling, diluting. It'd make more sense to get in touch with some of the gold mining companies in the area, option the properties, and if they were able to develop something, we'd own a small piece afterwards, or a royalty. So that's what I did. I did a number of option deals. We got the properties back. So now we have them, and we're looking again with this higher gold price at hopefully finding some companies, whether they be major or cash-rich juniors, if there is such a thing, to do the work, for us. And retain an interest in the properties, because I don't want to just keep on drilling and diluting and spending money on the projects. And we're fortunate 3 out of the 4 have been brought to lease, so we don't have to do a lot of work in order to hold on to the properties. In terms of our other projects. We have the Pick River property, as we call it, which is adjacent to Generation Mining, who are in the process of developing a platinum, palladium, copper, gold, and rhodium mine. Also outside of Marathon, Ontario, a very good location. And actually, it was Rudy Wall who picked up the claims on their western boundary. So when he offered them to us, we picked them up because we thought, this is a good location right next to what'll probably be North America's next platinum, palladium, copper mine. So we picked them up, and interestingly, that was in 2020, right before COVID. But interestingly, in January of this year, Generation Mining picked up a whole swath of claims on our southern boundary. So now, we are adjacent to them on our east and to the south. And they picked up those claims because there's some copper showings on the western part of their property. They've got something they call the Sally deposit, which is copper. And we're on strike with that. It's within a couple kilometers of our border, our eastern border with them. And then they have some other prospective land just to the southeast of us. So that's where they picked up the claims, which now join us. And the geological trend flows over onto our property. So it's just a well-located property. We've done some work over the last few years, prospecting work, flyover. So we've done, work to keep the claims current, and we're in a good location there. Finally, we've got a very interesting property in Argentina in Santa Cruz province. This was brought to me by Paul Lotka, who's a very well-known geologist in Latin America. He's had a lot of exploration success, and he was the one who prospected this property. No work had been done on it before. So we've brought that Lolita property, as we call it, to drill readiness, but it's been a long challenge to raise more money to develop that property. But, we've seen a change in government in Argentina. That province always was the best, most pro-mining province in the country. So we're hopeful that in the next couple of years, we'll be able to do something, whether it be with another company or ourselves, to at least test that property and see if there's something there. It's got a lot of potential. It's a big property, and it's got some very interesting geological anomalies on it.
Yeah, I find it interesting that you have projects across different jurisdictions. I always like to see that. When talking about the Timmins Gold project, what are the upcoming plans for that project? Are there any catalysts in particular you see forthcoming that maybe investors should be paying attention to?
No, I think actually the higher gold price goes, the better for us, because as I said, we're located to a number of producing or former producing mines. And as the gold price cuts through $2,500 on its way up, that'll make gold properties more interesting. And we really want to not put maximum dollars in those properties. We'd rather farm them out to someone else and keep an interest. We want to concentrate on Good Hope, which is our flagship property, and develop that.
I like that you have a clear vision there, and that you're not just going to waste shareholder money by drilling needlessly. Well, let's talk about the Good Hope project then. What are the upcoming plans for that?
We are trying to raise money and serious money to carry out a drill program. We've got some ideas of where some of the good targets should be on the property, and we're going to conferences. We're presenting. We've been invited to the Swiss Mining Institute in November of this year, which is a very prestigious conference. It's not that big, but it's family offices, Swiss banks, Swiss financial institutions, wealthy individuals. So we'll be presenting there, and we hope to raise some interest for albeit speculative money. However, if we conduct a drill program and hit some excellent grades and widths of niobium and phosphates with the infrastructure already in place, we think this can be a high value add to the company for shareholders, particularly with the future, with artificial intelligence, with EV batteries, or electronic batteries, period. And we also have potential for heavy and light rare earths. So, we don't have the money to assay for everything. We need money to drill. And then if we have enough, do a lot of assaying of the core. And all of this is very expensive, but it's what you have to do to know what you've got. So that is our focus. We want to raise a serious amount of money in the millions of dollars to drill Good Hope and hopefully prove out a 43-101 resource. Because if we can do that, that's going to automatically revalue the company.
Well, Anthony, this has been a fantastic conversation, but before I do let you go, are there any final words, anything we haven't covered so far about Plato Gold Corp that you think people should be taking a look at?
I think, in summary, we've got good properties in good jurisdictions, and we've got a very good technical team. I think if you look at our board of directors and you look at the people we're involved with, the technical team, we've got very good, experienced people. And so, if there's a company that is taking a good, I think, knowledgeable shot at these commodities, it's Plato. It's us. We have a good team, good properties, and that's what you need. But the one missing ingredient is money. If we can get that, I think that the future could be very bright for the company with all the well-located, good geological prospects that we have.
Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for coming on the show. I'm going to go ahead and put a link to Plato Gold Corp in the description below, as well as your social media profiles for people who want to follow the company. And thank you once again for coming on and sharing your knowledge with the audience.
Thanks very much, Jesse.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.